Well, a very warm welcome once again is Kasim. I hope all is well. I have another question here, which is entitled, "What would you do if you was me?" And I just wanted to share some of my thoughts. As many of you know, I have previously worked in schools. I've worked across Southwest London doing workshops on relationships, on mental health. And in a couple of months, I'm due to qualify as a counselor therapist. And so I've met a lot of students who are always asking me about various pieces of advice. I can't speak to every student, but I wanted to share some things with you on various topics so that I'll be able to scale some of my support. And hopefully you'd find it useful. Um, I've been through a lot, and so I've learned some things along the way. But yeah, let's get into today's question, and hopefully, it may have some utility for you in your own life. So the question is, what would you do if you was me? And this is, I found this on the student room, and the person who wrote it is Restaurant, and this is what they said. 26, no friends, depression and social anxiety, social media addict, not in uni or work, but want to start uni, but think it's too late to experience my wasted youth. So, thanks very much for the question. I thought it was really, really interesting. And firstly, I'm really sorry, by the way, that you feel like this, is what I would firstly start off by saying, because we are living in a world today in the UK where I don't think that you're the only person who feels like this. That may be of use to you, may not be of use to you, but I would firstly say off, I'm really sorry, and just know that this isn't a unique experience. There is lots of other people who feel like this and are in quite a similar position. But one of the first things that I would pose to you, and this is a question, is: Are you depressed or is your life just a mess? And the reason why I'm asking you this question is that I think and I've observed that depression really tends to sit in two camps. There are people who have clinical depression and who basically depression is like an illness for them. And there are people who genuinely are depressed because when you look at the sum and the result of their life, it makes sense that they're unhappy. It makes sense that they are feeling low, and they're feeling depressed and they're feeling down. It just makes sense. And part of this is that I think that one of the antidotes or the cures to depression is momentum. And what it sounds like to me is that you have no momentum in your life. You have no wind on your sails. You have nothing behind you that is pushing you, that is in your advantage, right? You don't have any turbo in your car, metaphorically speaking. That turbo can be things like purpose, it can be things like duty and stuff like that. These are some of the turbos that I'm talking about. And so a lot of the strategies or the thoughts that I'm going to give you moving forward are going to really be about how to gain momentum. And one of the first things that I would share with you is, so I wrote a book, and it was called How to Set Goals, and it was specifically because of this very particular issue that I encountered with many, many, many students who found themselves in a situation similar to yours. And in that book, there are basically six steps, which is this. The book is about how to design the next 10 years of your life, and it goes into these six steps. And the first step in that is what I call story. Okay. And you've already talked about story, which is all about how did you get here, and your position. But actually, in your particular situation, and what I talk about in that book is that one of the things that you want to tell your story, which is good, but what you also want to do is that you want to extract the gems out of your story. In other words, there'll be principles, there'll be patterns, there'll be strengths, there'll be weaknesses. If you observe and look back at your story, that you've missed. And so, the first thing that I would recommend to you is to either go and speak to a counselor or start having like a journal, like I do, and start literally writing down some of the things that have happened to you and begin to write down some of the patterns. What are some of the things that you've noticed about yourself in terms of patterns? Do you F find it hard to wake up in the morning? Do you work better at night? Do you give? Are you like somebody who gives it 100% for like 3 months and then you step off and like let loose and go crazy? Are you somebody who operates at about a six every single day? Do you lean more towards sport? Do you lean more towards work that is a lot more manual? Do you lean more towards things that are more creative? Are you the kind of person who thrives and works better in a team? Have you observed that, for example, like me in my situation, I observe that alcohol is something that cannot intervene. I just can't entertain, sorry. I cannot entertain alcohol. I've tried to stop alcohol by drinking 1 pint. I'll drink four and then I'll stop. Um, Basically, what I've realized is me and alcohol do not mix. Okay. And a lot of my issues and problems arise. The anxiety, the stress, the lack of integrity always happens whenever I've been drinking. So my rule is I don't drink. Right. On very rare occasions, if it's like somebody's wedding, I might have a glass of Prosecco. But apart from that, I don't drink. Right. That is something that I've had to come to myself and realize about myself. And so, what I'd recommend to you is to just take some time, take a week, take a couple of weeks, and take an inventory of yourself. Just observe for yourself where you're at and how you've got here and what strengths and weaknesses you've observed about yourself. What is no longer working is what I talk about in that book. There may be some aspects of your personality, some aspects of your attitude, your mindset that may not be serving you. And therefore, what I'd recommend is exchanging them, right? You may not necessarily have the skills that you're going to need in order to fulfill and live the kind of life that you want to in the next 5 to 10 years. In which case, you may, for example, I'll use me as an example. I realized that if I was going to help as many people as I wanted to, I was going to learn how to, I was going to have to learn how to write books because all the people who I admired, who were living the kind of life that I wanted to live, they were authors, they had written. But the problem was, I had a mindset and a philosophy and a belief system that I was dumb, that I was stupid. And that's because when I was growing up, people used to call me dumb and stupid. Part of it is because I'd been held back a year in school. When I came to England from Uganda to Exeter, they put me back 1 year because I didn't know any English. And they said that they'd move me up after I learned English. The problem was they never moved me up. And kids would call me dumb and stupid and stuff like that. And so I always believed that I was stupid and dumb. I didn't know that that I had taken on other people's belief systems. And so I had to actually do a lot of internal work, reflections, journaling. I had to do a lot of work in therapy to get rid of that mentality and that belief system that I couldn't, that I was dumb on and that I wasn't intelligent. Because lo and behold, I've written 4 books, so I can't be that dumb. Right. So one of the first things that I would share with you on this subject, well, the second thing is to just take some inventory of yourself, right? Don't think about the future at the moment. Don't think about anything. Just look at what have you learned about yourself? What works and what doesn't work? Are you good in relationships? Do you need support? Basically, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses, and how have you been spending most of your life? Have you been spending most of your life leaning towards that which is your strength, or have you been spending loads of your time leaning to more that which is your weakness, or bending into pressure? Or having to live trying to impress other people or trying to get affirmation or to be liked or to fit in. Because you may find that actually, when you observe your life, you might be like me and you were never supposed to fit in, right? Part of why I'm a really good counselor, from what people tell me, is because I've had so many polarities and things that oppose each other in my life, and I've never really fit in anywhere, which has allowed me to be able to go into areas that most people can't get into. So that's the first thing that I would share with you. Just take an inventory of yourself, and before you move forward, really look at where have you been and what have you learned about yourself that you're going to use to improve your life. You should be getting better and not worse. Because if you're getting better, it means that you're learning about yourself. You're learning what it isn't working. Essentially, what I'm trying to get to here is that you want to get to a place where you can course correct. When astronauts are going to the moon, or went to the moon, every periodically they had to, even though they knew exactly where they were going and the ship was going in the right direction, they had to course correct every now and then because of various factors that would arise. And essentially, what I'm saying is if you are going to course correct, you need to know that you're course correcting on the right things. You may find that you are at a point in your life where actually you're not even on the right track. Your ladder, your train is on the wrong train tracks. You might be facing in the wrong direction. You might be pursuing. Recently, I was listening to all these videos, and I've been studying videos of people who'd quit their PhDs. And I thought, my God, why in the world would somebody quit their PhD? It's like the highest academic level that you can reach. And one of the things that I observed many other people were saying is that after they'd started to do their PhD and they'd really started to do what I call the maths and begin to take inventory, they began to realize, Jesus Christ, the people who are going to be doing the job that I'm doing, who have a master's degree, they're basically being paid the same amount of money as I am at PhD, and nobody really cares. Okay, some people are going to say, oh, it's wonderful you got a PhD, but the things that matter most to some people, which is my income, which is being able to do research or being able to work in a certain job, it doesn't require a PhD. A PhD is wonderful if you have a subject which you're really passionate about and that you want to do loads of research on. But if you just want to get a master's degree that will allow you entry into certain jobs or certain incomes, you do not need a PhD. Many of these jobs do not require a PhD. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting that these people have I learn and actually would quit their and actually would quit their PhD. And I thought that was really interesting. One of the other things that I was writing here is, excuse me, is you talked about social media, and you also talked about anxiety, social anxiety. And what I would say is that once you figure out some of the things for you that lean towards who you are or that are working against you, that in itself will create a bit of momentum. And once you've gained that momentum, as you move forward, you can leverage and take advantage of social media, right? Because if you have figured out that actually you like to spend a lot of your time drawing or being creative, you can do things like YouTube. You can create a business or work or do workshops in your local town or village or city, or you can go on a course. And essentially, what I was going to say around, particularly around social anxiety, is that you will find friends and your social anxiety will be overcome if you're in positioned in a place where you're going towards something. Let me try to find a way to explain this. Um, a lot of people's social anxiety, not everybody, but some people, their social anxiety comes from the fact that they're being paralyzed because they haven't got any momentum. They're not moving. They don't have a goal. If you listen to some people, particularly people who've had like addictions, and you say, "How did you overcome your addiction?" You were scared to leave your. I'll give you an example. So I was in Croydon, and I was at a half program. A half program. Google it. In the summer. And I met a woman who had agoraphobia. Agoraphobia is where people basically don't want to leave their house or don't want to go to certain places. And I said, well, how do you have agoraphobia when you're here? Because you're here with your child. And she said, part of the reason why I ended up here is because my daughter refused to leave and go into the garden. She refused to leave the house and refused to go into the garden. And she would say, Mummy, Mummy, I don't want to go into the garden. I'm scared. In other words, she said her daughter picked up her agoraphobia, and her daughter stopped. And she said, she had a reason to overcome her agoraphobia. What I'm saying is, if you already know, have a goal of where you'd like to be in 10 years, and you're starting to position yourself and live incongruent and in accordance to the best parts of who you are, and that are your strengths, what will naturally happen is that you're going to be around people who are going to you're going to have some advantage too. In other words, when you start going around people, when you start operating in your strengths, there are going to be other people who are going to recognize your strengths, and it's going to be of some value to them, right? And those people, a lot of human beings, and a lot of the things that we've overcome has been not for us but for other people. And so when you talk about social anxiety, when you talk about social media, you can leverage all of these. So for example, in you don't have to worry about friends, because you will find friends if you go online and you find clubs and groups. So for example, let's say using me, I wanted to find people who were writers or people who were aspiring to be writers. I wasn't, well, it wasn't actually, that's not technically true. I didn't want to find people. I wanted to get around people who were ahead of me in the journey and I could learn from. When I joined these groups and I found them, I found that there were people there who we connected, and then we would start talking, and then all of a sudden I started having friends. And I was like, whoa, this was not my intention. But what happens is, when you are in these positions, where you are in operating within the best aspects of your humanity or your strengths, is that you're naturally going to attract people. People want to be around people who are positive. People want to be around people who are moving forward, who are optimistic, who have a mission, who are driven. People just do. Right? If you observe who people gravitate towards, they gravitate towards a person who's moving forward, who's got a story, who's got a mission, right? That's just naturally, we naturally gravitate towards leaders. And we don't have to be leaders as in I'm running a company. We can be the leader in our own life. We can be the leader of our dream. We can be the leader of just trying to overcome something in our life. And as we do that, that will help us overcome the social anxiety, and also it's going to take us away from social media addiction, because we're going to be connecting with other actual human beings, right? If I always say to people that if you want to overcome something, don't stop it, exchange it for something more healthy, right? Social media isn't going away. And so you might as well leverage it and use it to your advantage. Find people, find courses. If you look at my social media and the social media that I have, if you look at the people who I'm following on all my social media, all of them are to do with mental health, counseling, psychotherapy, um, writing books, workshops, right? It's all to do with, I'm really interested in properties and renovation. So if you watch and look at my feed, all of it is in some way related to where I want to go towards. So yes, you may call me an addict, but I'm addicted. But the addiction and the things that I'm learning are actually serving me and are of benefit to me. I'm not just using social media and being addicted to it for the reason of being addicted to it, but I'm using it in my advantage. So I don't know if that makes sense. What else did I write here? Yeah, that's kind of it, actually. That's kind of what I wrote. Oh no, the final thing that I wanted to say is it's never too late. And when I was reading the other comments that people had written down below, this became too apparent. Let me tell you something. I always say to people, because it's funny, as a counselor, I get people who I speak to who are like 60 or 70 years of age, and they're like, it's too late for me. And then when I meet somebody who's 26, it's almost laughable, because I'm like, bro, how can you tell me that you're 26 and I'm meeting and you saying it's too late when I'm meeting people who are like 60, 70 who you say it's too late? It's never too late. The way that I tend to think about it is and this is, when I wanted to change my life, but I was like, oh, I don't want to go back to uni and all of this, and I don't want to start again. The way that I thought about it is, what the hell am I going to do for the rest of my life? I've got nothing to lose. Even if I do this for 10 years, and die, I would rather operate in my essence for 10 years and die than 0 years and then die. right? And the way that I remember thinking about it, and I said, you know what? I've really got nothing to lose. If I go for this and I try this out and it doesn't work, okay, well, I could just go and work in McDonald's. I could just become a cleaner. It's not the end of the world. I'm sure somebody, I can clean a school, I can clean somewhere, I can clean an office. Like there'll be some job I can work in Tesco's, in Lidl, somewhere. There'll be some job, right? And so what I would share with you is, um, in terms of starting, is just begin, man. Don't try to think about it in terms of doing 100,000 things. Just do one thing. But the other thing that I would share with you, which I think you might find useful if you don't have work, is go and volunteer, particularly in the area which is in alignment. After you've done that whole inventory looking and taken analysis of your life, go and volunteer in an area which is close to you, right? If you love libraries, go into the local library and say, is there any possibility I can volunteer here once a week? I'll do it for free. I'll do it on a Sunday or Monday or whatever, right? I just want 2 or 3 hours. Or if none of those, if you don't not sure what you want to do yet and you're not sure where you want to head towards, I'll just say to you, go to any charity shop and ask them to volunteer. Every charity shop is always looking for somebody. Just say, is it possible for me that I can work in a bag and I can do tidy up 2 or 3 hours every week? Again, this is about gaining momentum. A lot of the things that I've been telling you today are all about getting momentum. So I don't know if that's useful or not, but that's what I was thinking about. And I hope that's useful in some way. Again, me, I've always said this is just my thoughts. I don't know you directly. I don't know your life. I don't have the full context. I don't know the full spectrum of everything that's happened to you. But I hope this can be some fundamentals and that can lead, or a blueprint or a web, or can add to your web of the way the world works as you try to figure it out and move forward. As usual, guys, if you please like and subscribe, da 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 da, all that sort of stuff. It'll be useful to me. Send me questions if you wish. And hopefully I will speak to you very, very soon. Thank you very much for watching and listening, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye for now.